Coming up on today's video, final injury updates from all 20 Premier League teams, my final Game Week 5 wildcard team, who are the best forwards to buy, and much, much more. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan, and it's time to make those final decisions for Game Week 5. So first of all, let's go through the injury updates and press conferences from all 20 teams. I'm sure there's a few teams in particular that you guys are very, very keen to know about, so stay tuned for that. And if you do enjoy these updates every week, make sure you do drop a like to show your appreciation, and subscribe if you're new around here as well. We do this every Friday to give you all of the information you need to know ahead of the FPL deadlines. But West Ham is the first team to talk about here, and Emerson will have a late fitness check following a knee injury. Unfortunately, there has been no update on Fulkrog, however. For Chelsea, Enzo and Dewsbury Hall have recovered following illness, but it's not so good news for Gusto and Lavia, who are back in training but not ready to start. Reece James, of course, is out longer term. From Aston Villa and Unai Emery, the good news is Watkins is available 100% to play. The injury scare is no more. He is going to be absolutely fine. So music to everyone's ears. There was some concern during the midweek Champions League game. Speaking of the Champions League game, Bailey was also back on the bench in that fixture against Young Boys. So yeah, he is going to be another major boost to this Aston Villa team ahead of the Wolves game. Matty Cash, another boost. He's been spotted in training this week, so could get his position back at right back fairly soon. As for Wolves, it's not so great news for Ait Nori and Totti, who will have late assessments following injuries there. Mascara, however, is available. Gonzalez, Kalajdzic and Traore remain out for Wolves. For Fulham, Vinicius is out for at least another week, but everyone else is available. One thing of note is that Muniz played over 90 minutes in a second-string cup team in the League Cup in the week. That whole Fulham team was basically all of the players who don't play regularly, and if Muniz is part of that 11 of players who don't play regularly, that's not good news going into Game Week 5. In Game Week 4, of course, Muniz was benched, Jimenez played instead and scored, so I think it's very likely that Muniz finds himself on the bench once again in Game Week 5, a potential player to sell there, and we will be looking at some forward replacements if you are looking to sell Muniz. As for Newcastle, Isak has picked up a toe injury this week, in addition to that eye issue that he had. Howe is hopeful that it's not too bad, or not toe bad, should I say, but yeah, we know that Howe is often a bit of a trickster in these press conferences, so it's really difficult to say if Isak is going to be available or not. What we do know is that Wilson is going to be out, and he's expected to be back in October, and if Isak and Wilson are both out, well, Gordon is likely to play as the striker instead. Isak is an interesting one. I know we all want definitive answers. I would love definitive answers myself. Unfortunately, we just can't have them with a manager like Eddie Howe, and, you know, it might not even be certain whether he's available or not anyway. It could be a late test for him, so really difficult situation for FPL. What I would probably say is make sure you have a backup for him if you do intend on keeping him. And at the same time, with Man City in Game Week 6, I don't think there's any problem with selling Isak either. So Muniz and Isak, potential sells for this week. Again, we look forward to talking about some forward replacements. For Leicester, Edouard is now eligible to play following being unable to play against parent club Palace in Game Week 4. So may provide some competition for Vardy in that striker position, but Vardy will probably play. I know who won't play as a striker though, and that's going to be Daka. He and Stolazic are still out, both with ankle injuries. And from Everton, although Calvert-Lewin has recovered from illness, I know he was flagged in FPL, but Calvert-Lewin, he is fine. He's not going to be, well, there's not too much concern there for him. Looks like he's going to be okay alongside Mikalenko, but there are some other injury issues at Everton. Garner and Harrison are both ill, and Keane has picked up a potential injury there as well. So all of these guys could be out. As for Branthwaite and Patterson, they are out. And Gay is also going to be unavailable this week due to a bereavement in the family. So my condolences to Gay, but he is definitely not going to be playing in Game Week 5. The big news from Liverpool is that Alisson is doubtful with a hamstring injury that he has picked up. Apparently it was picked up maybe a week ago. He played through it in AC Milan, and that maybe aggravated aggravated the issue a little bit, which is causing some concerns, and he might be rested for game week 5. So I'm sure not too many people own Alisson in FPL, but if you do, be aware, and if you own Liverpool defenders, obviously when one of the best of goalkeepers in world football is not playing for you, that is going to weaken the defence in general. So something to be aware of. Jota played 68 minutes on Tuesday against AC Milan. Now there's no injury concern here, but just to warn you guys, Jota obviously played 59 minutes in game week 4, then played 68 minutes on Tuesday. He's probably going to be fine, have enough recovery time to play against Bournemouth and to start against Bournemouth. He is the clear first choice in the striker position, but it is something to be aware of. There is a chance that Jota does get rested in game week 5, but I think he will still play based on what we know currently. Elliott is still out, however. And for Bournemouth, Kepa, he is available again after being ineligible to face parent club Chelsea in game week 4. Ouattara is doubtful, but he could be back, and Adams is still out. For Southampton, Stevens is suspended until game week 7, so we're expecting Harwood Bellis to come straight back into the Southampton starting lineup. Smallbone, no update on him, unfortunately, but Sulemana could be ready for a return for Southampton this week. Just maybe. For Ipswich, Broadhead and Clark are back in training and could play, and apparently pretty much everyone has been training and could be available for this week. So good injury news from Ipswich, clearly taking a leaf out of Fulham's books as being the most injury-free teams in the Premier League. For Spurs, Bissouma and Werner are both available following minor injury concerns. However, Odegaard is going to be out with a hamstring injury, so he is going to be out already. Richarlison is still unavailable. For Brentford, Rico Henry is still out, but he will join partial training at least from Monday. So looking forward to him maybe coming back as a potential FPL option for us, but it's not going to happen this game week. Jensen is also out for an unspecified amount of time, and Sharda was actually singled out and praised. We know Wissa is going to be out for a couple of months, so it could be that Sharda is going to be the new starting striker for Brentford. He's actually listed as a 5.4 million midfielder in FPL, by the way, guys, if you do fancy a little bit of a risky differential from the Brentford team. For Crystal Palace, lots of bad news here. Decore is set to be out for several weeks following an injury, and Chalobah and Franca also remain out. They could be back by game week 6, but it's not going to happen in game week 5. Chadi Riyad is also out longer term as well, so a few issues for Crystal Palace at the moment. As for Manchester United, they're not doing too great for injuries themselves, but at least Højlund and Mount are back in training. They could play in game week 5. Lindelof, Malacia, Shaw and Yoro remain out, however. For Brighton, João Pedro, big news here. He has apparently trained and he could even play, but Hurtsler, he specifically said that he won't take any risks. Now, do we trust Hurtsler after last week? He didn't even mention the João Pedro injury, so that is a concern whether we should believe Hurtsler or not. And there is a concern that João Pedro has barely trained for Brighton since before the international break. So is he going to be ready to play full 90? Almost certainly not. He wasn't in the midweek squad either. So yeah, I do worry. I do wonder, could he play a few minutes? I'm not sure if he's going to be a starter this week though, but I'll let you guys make your own minds up on that one. Solly March is back on grass. He's not ready to start, however, and Gruder and Milner are still out. For Nottingham Forest, Bolly is close to returning, but still not ready, and Sangare and Danilo are out for a while, apparently. And here's the big game of the week, which we will discuss in further detail in this video. But first of all, the injury news between Man City and Arsenal is that De Bruyne picks up a groin issue and will have a late test. Pep Guardiola didn't seem too worried about this one though. With a few days between the Champions League game and the Sunday fixture against Arsenal, there is some recovery time here. So De Bruyne, it's not that he's definitely going to be out. He's still got a very good chance of playing, but there is some concern there around his groin issue, I suppose. Moving on, Foden is ready to play 90 minutes this game week, which is good news for him. He was a great FPL asset last season, and it'll be great to have him back on the menu again for this season. And Ake and Bob are still going to be out. For Arsenal, well, Arteta has backtracked. Odegaard, following a scan, will be out for a while. We don't know how long that is, but we shouldn't have too much hope about Odegaard in the near future. Tierney, Tomiyasu and Zinchenko all remain out, and Rice is back after suspension that he served in that game week 4 fixture against Spurs. So a boost with Rice, Ødegaard still out, and Timber will be locking down that left back position. Let's move on to some other stuff, because there's still so much to talk about in this video. So going through my predictions for Game Week 5, who will win their games? Well, I think Chelsea should have enough to beat West Ham, and Aston Villa should have enough to beat Wolves. I think Liverpool, another big team in the Premier League, should beat Bournemouth as well. They're playing at home, which is usually a good sign. However, I do see there being quite a few draws this week. I think Leicester and Everton will draw, Fulham and Newcastle could draw, and Southampton and Ipswich could draw as well. I even think Crystal Palace and Manchester United could be a draw. With Crystal Palace playing at home, I think they do have a good chance of getting something out of this game. Outside of that, I think the home teams will win. Spurs, Brighton and Man City, I think, will all grab the 3 points. But if you disagree with me and think you can predict better, make sure you join my sleeper Pickham League. The link is at the top of the description, and those with the best predictions win prizes. I've put all the prizes on screen now for you guys. We're giving these away every month and at the end of the season. So if you think your prediction game is good, get involved, completely free to play, and come and compete with me and many others in this league. Link at the top of the description. Okay, forwards. You guys are selling forwards, and we've got some suggestions for some forwards that you could potentially buy here. The best cheap options are certainly going to be the likes of Calvert-Lewin and Vardy. Everyone is talking about these two in particular. Calvert-Lewin has got some decent fixtures moving forward and is a penalty taker. Vardy, he's also a penalty taker, but that tricky fixture against Arsenal in Game Week 6 might put you off for the long term. Now, I like these players both for a 1 week punt in Game Week 5. However, I do think they both have value longer term. Calvert-Lewin for obvious reasons, but Vardy, if you could rotate him with maybe a Rodgers in Game Week 6, then 7 and 8 actually look pretty decent for him. So no problem with owning Vardy for the at least medium term as well. As for Chris Wood, been a bit of a forgotten man since he blanked against Liverpool in Game Week 4. Before that, he was banging it in goals. He was doing really, really well. So I think Wood is definitely a player we need to consider once again at 6.1 million if you are looking for a cheap forward. Brighton away is not the ideal fixture, but Fulham, Chelsea, Crystal Palace after that, it's a pretty decent run of fixtures for him. It's absolutely fine. As for Strand Larsen, he's a bit differential and a little bit cheaper than some of the other guys. Now, his fixtures in the short term are not great, but after Man City, after game week, well, from game week 9 onwards, Wolves' fixtures are brilliant. So Strand Larsen is the main starting striker for Wolves. He's been getting some goal returns in the Premier League and in the Cups as well. So moving forward, if you want a long-term, very, very cheap forward option, then he actually could genuinely be the guy to go for. So one to consider. Those are your kind of cheap forward options. Let me know which one you like the most out of these, but there's some expensive options as well. So Watkins is super obvious if you can afford him, particularly now that we know that he is 100% available. Kai Havertz, ideally you would wait until game week 6 before buying him because of that difficult Man City game, which we do still need to talk about in more detail. But at the same time, you know, if you need to go 1 week early on a transfer to Havertz, then that's what you need to do. And actually, we'll see that Havertz does have a chance of scoring against Man City. We will talk about that. One thing to note about Havertz is that he actually played in midfield in the midweek with Jesus playing as the striker. So do be aware that if you do want to go for Havertz, then he could continue to play in midfield whilst Ødegaard is out. That's the concern there, and that's not going to be so good for him for FPL returns. Mateta is an interesting differential here. He's got great fixtures over the next 2, and I think he could get something out of this. Penalty share as well is always useful. And Nicholas Jackson, bit of an outside choice there, but next 3 fixtures are pretty good. No competition in the striker position for Chelsea, and yeah, in general, his numbers are pretty good at the moment, actually. So yeah, you could consider going for him as a slightly cheaper option to a Watkins or a Havertz, I suppose. But yeah, again, let me know which of these forwards that do you like the most. If you're selling a forward, are you going to go for one of the cheaper guys? Do you have a little bit more money to spend? Is there anyone we haven't mentioned in today's video that you think are going to be a good option? In general, I think all 8 of the forwards I've mentioned all have their value, all have their merit, and I wouldn't have too much of an issue playing and buying any of them, really. I think they're all great, but you're going to have your preferences. regardless of what you're looking for in that forward. So I wanted to just put out plenty of options for you guys. Let's talk about this Man City Arsenal fixture, because there is actually a lot to talk about here, because I'm sure a few of you guys have a few Man City and Arsenal players, and you're maybe worried about them for this week. You're worried about them playing each other. Can they get you any FPL points? Well, some of them can, and I'm going to just put out the facts here mostly and then give maybe a bit of opinion at the end. But I encourage you to interpret this the way you want to interpret this. And like, this is just, kind of factual stuff, predictive stuff, projected stuff. So yeah, looking at the expected goals conceded per 90 so far this season, Man City are coming out on top, only 0.8 expected goals conceded per 90. Arsenal, however, are up at 1.1. So Man City, they are one of the top teams. They're second in the Premier League for kind of best record for expected goals conceded. Arsenal, not looking so good, actually. They're kind of mid-table for expected goals conceded so far this season. Have been pretty fortunate to have only conceded 1 goal and to keep 3 clean sheets. Pretty lucky there. Most of that is due to Raya being fantastic and a lot of the forwards missing big chances against them, getting the big chances but actually missing them. And you do wonder if the same thing is going to happen against Man City. And by the way, I say this as an Arsenal fan, I am very worried about this game, and I think Arsenal are going to be punished more in this game than they've maybe got away with quite a lot so far this season. I still hope Arsenal win, but I'm not as confident that they'll keep a clean sheet. Now, speaking of clean sheet, the clean sheet odds, according to the bookies, 34% for Man City, which I know if you have Man City defenders, you're going to be worried for this game week, but 34% clean sheet odds is the second best of any team in Game Week 5. Only Liverpool have better clean sheet odds for this game week. So really high for Man City, surprisingly high. And if you do have Man City defenders, I would say that this is looking good for you. This is actually looking pretty good. And even though some other teams might have easier fixtures because they also have weaker defenses, it kind of balances out. And Man City have good projections here. Arsenal, again, not looking so hot. 17% chance of a clean sheet according to the bookmakers. And that is not too good. If you have Raya, you're hopefully going to be able to get some save points from this one. But in terms of your Salibas, your Gabriels, it's going to be more difficult to get clean sheet points from a game like this. And away against Man City, that probably comes as a surprise to absolutely nobody. So far, conclusion, if you have Man City defenders, great. They're absolutely fine to play this week. If you have Arsenal defenders, maybe a little bit more cause for concern. Now, going into the forward positions and the attackers, Man City have 1.75 projected goals and Arsenal 1.08 projected goals. So we're looking at a 2-1 win for Man City, maybe a 1-1 draw in this game, but we're going to see a few goals in this game according to the projections, even though ordinarily this is a low-scoring game. But we are projected some goals here, particularly for Man City. Now, looking at the individual players, Haaland is the only player with significant projected goals, 0.69 for him, which suggests that there's kind of a, I know it doesn't work like this. I know this is not how you work out percentages, but there's like a more than a half chance that Haaland scores in this game. I don't know the exact numbers for Haaland's odds on scoring multiple goals to make a full calculation, but there's a very good chance Haaland gets something from this game. Very, very good. It's more likely to happen than to not happen, particularly when you factor in the chance of him scoring multiple goals. So to simplify, guys, Haaland is absolutely fine for this game week. He's nothing to worry about. He has still got some of the highest projected numbers of any player in the Premier League this game week, despite the tough fixture. So Haaland, probably not worth selling, and a genuine captain option for this week as well, despite any concerns you might have again about Arsenal. For Arsenal, there's 2 players with significant projected goals numbers, and they are Havertz with 0.27 projected goals and Saka on 0.25 projected goals, which isn't nothing. It isn't nothing. That is still a chance, a significant enough chance for an attacking return. So again, if you do have these players, I think they're fine to play. So overall, guys, for this Man City and Arsenal game, if you have City defenders, fine. If you have Arsenal defenders, a little bit of worry there. If you have Haaland, fine. If you have Arsenal attackers, probably fine. Like, it's not the worst. It could be a lot worse, and that's very much due to the quality of the players in this game. They have a chance of scoring against anyone. That's how it works with the top players. So, yeah, I think, generally speaking, I think we can probably calm down a little bit on Man City versus Arsenal. It's fine to play your Man City players against Arsenal. It's fine to play your Arsenal players against Man City. There's a good chance that everything works out fantastically. Although it probably won't, knowing FPL. Let's move on. So I made a wildcard draft. I appreciate this video is going on, so we'll keep this fairly brief. But, guys, if you're wildcarding, I would make a team something like this. Raya in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Pau Torres, and Alex Moreno in defence. Yes, 3 Spaniards in the back line, with Raya included there. In midfield, we've gone for Salah, Eze, Rodgers, and Mbeumo. And up front, Calvert-Lewin, Haaland, and Havertz. On the bench, we've gone for Slicker, Semenyo, who will probably play ahead of Rodgers most game weeks, but not this week, because Bournemouth face Liverpool away. And Greaves and Vandenberg, a potential starting centre-back at 4 million for Brentford. Looks pretty good as well. Yes, there are 3 players between City and Arsenal in this wildcard team. Quite frankly, we're going to want loads of players from City and Arsenal from game week 6 onwards. So if you are wildcarding a week early, you're going to have at least some of them for this game week, and then look to load up even more using your free transfers in game week 6 and 7. It's just got to be done, unfortunately. Maybe Salah down to Saka could work, and maybe that allows you to upgrade some of your other players. Maybe Eze or Rodgers up to a Bowen, for example, to get that additional Arsenal player in and spread the funds a little bit more. So that would be my suggestion if you are wildcarding in game week 5. Couple of differentials for you today for this week. Calvert-Lewin and Mateta we've spoken about already, but I think they look pretty hot for this game week. Great fixture for Everton against Leicester, and a great fixture for Mateta against Manchester United as well, I would say. Nice differentials. And McNeil, not mentioned him so far today. We did speak about him a little bit in the 100 experts video, because a few of our experts are picking up McNeil. 5.4 million midfielder, playing more centrally, creating a lot this season, and Everton actually scoring goals. McNeil, set pieces, creative, could be involved in some goals against Leicester. Let's see what happens there. Looking at the top predicted points for game week 5, and this is where we kind of look at the best captain options. We're going to show you 6 options today, because I know non-Salah owners probably want to see what they're dealing with. So Salah, first of all, he just is the best captain and the highest predicted points for game week 5. Everyone knows it. We all understand it. 8.4 predicted points. Very, very high indeed. Haaland, not as far behind as you might expect. 7.4 predicted points. So predicted only 1 less point than Salah. Now, if you don't have Salah and you were looking for a captain and your captain scored around 7-8 points, I think you would be pretty happy with that in game week 5. I think you'd be okay with it. So Haaland is an absolutely fine captain for game week 5. I think we've spoken a lot about Haaland today, but he really is fine to captain, to own, everything like that. After that, if you don't fancy Haaland and you don't have Salah, there are a few differentials here. Eze, Palmer, Son, Watkins, all around the same predicted points. You're probably surprised to see Eze in there, but Palmer, Son, and Watkins a little bit more expected to be in this kind of area for points. But there's a big gap. It goes Salah, big gap, Haaland, big gap, Eze, Palmer, Son, Watkins. So yeah, these players kind of come in 3 tiers. You've got your super sensible, super safe captain Salah. He's the right captain. Haaland, who is, a backup to Salah. Everyone else, honestly, I don't know if I go there. But hey, let me know if you are going to be captaining someone else. You've got to be pretty brave to do it, though, I suppose. And finally, my Game Week 5 Dream Team. My Game Week 4 Dream Team, by the way, didn't do too well. I loaded up on triple Liverpool and triple Brighton, who both let us down in Game Week 4, I suppose. But Game Week 5, we go again. Verbruggen in goal against Forest. Robertson and Alexander-Arnold against Bournemouth. Davis against Southampton. A midfield of Salah, Palmer, and Mbeumo and Bruno Fernandes. And up front, Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, and Mateta. The bench is Valdemarson, Adama, Bogard, and Harwood Bellis. And this team, I think, is going to score 100 points in Game Week 5. Well, probably not. Game Week 5 is going to just be a difficult week in general. And even though I've made this dream team here, I don't know if it looks amazing for the long term. And I think that just kind of shows how difficult Game Week 5 is. If this is the perfect team for Game Week 5, then Obviously, Game Week 5 is a little bit of a worrying week, I suppose. But still, there's some good players in here, and maybe you guys can consider them as 1 week punts for Game Week 5, or if you're free hitting for some reason in Game Week 5, maybe a team like this would work out for you. But there we go. Guys, make sure you drop a like if you appreciated this video. If it helped you out at all, it really does go a long way. Subscribe if you want these Friday updates every single week to help you out with your FPL. And YouTube recommends you watch this video next. So why not check that one out as well? But aside from that, I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.